The screen is black. A heartbeat echoes. Then, a whisper. She knew the day you'd die before you were even born. In 1873, a little girl in Milwaukee, Wisconsin began to speak in numbers, but not in the way a child learns arithmetic. She spoke in patterns, percentages, and inevitable outcomes. She predicted when a man would die, to the minute. She exposed secret affairs, crimes hidden in shadows, lies buried in silence, and did it all with the detached certainty of mathematics. Her name was Emma Richter, 11 years old, quiet, pale, eyes like storm clouds counting every step you took. The community called her gifted. Then they called her cursed. By spring, 3 were dead. A family fled in the night, and Emma vanished. But her leather journal remained, full of numbers no one could bear to decode. You see, Emma didn't guess the future. She calculated it, and in doing so, she peeled back the veil on something darker than mere superstition, a system of control hidden in plain sight, a logic beneath the chaos, a program running through our lives. You were never meant to see it, but she did. And now, so will you. If you're still watching by Section 8, comment "The pattern watches" twice. Because that's when the descent truly begins. Are you ready to lose what you thought was free will? Emma Richter was born in the black belly of a storm. 3 weeks early on a creaking immigrant ship crossing the Atlantic in 1861. Too small to cry, too weak to suckle. The ship's doctor told her parents to pray. But Emma didn't die. She listened. From the day she opened her eyes, she absorbed, not just language or behavior, but systems, sequences, hidden frameworks. By the time she was 4, she could recite entire conversations she overheard days before, down to every pause and cough. By 5, she was counting the steps between houses, how many stitches were in her mother's sleeve, how long it took for the brewery whistle to echo through their alleyway after each hour struck. But this wasn't memory, it was computation. Emma didn't remember events. She reconstructed them, over and over, in silence. Her parents called it a gift, but gifts don't make priests tremble or neighbors cross themselves. There were other children like her, once, in records burned by fire, in monasteries buried in salt. Every few centuries, the world produces a child that doesn't follow the story. They decode it. They see the script beneath reality, and when they speak, reality begins to break. Emma spoke, and then it began. In the winter of 1872, Milwaukee froze so deeply the breweries had to burn crates just to keep their vats warm. Snow covered the red brick streets like ash. It was in this silence, this cold, that Emma began her true work. She sat by the window of their modest Galena Street home for hours, watching, recording. She tracked the steps of men to the brewery, the way Mrs. Weber's hand trembled slightly when her husband came home early, the whistle patterns from the foundry, the soot on boots, the weight in voices. Everything to Emma was data. And then she began to speak, quietly at first, to her mother, while buttering bread. "Mr. Dietrich will die at exactly 2:14 this afternoon," she said. Her mother laughed nervously. Emma didn't. "His alcohol intake has increased 38%. He steps unevenly. His breathing changes after 147 paces. The formula is clear." At 2:14 p.m., Mr. Dietrich collapsed in the malt room. Dead. Word spread like frost across the German quarter. A child who could see death approaching, not through vision or curse, but through numbers. The question wasn't how Emma knew. The real question was, who else had she been calculating? The neighbors stopped smiling. The priest stopped visiting. The market woman no longer handed Greta Richter the fresh bread. She tossed it onto the counter like a curse might cling to her fingertips. But Emma continued watching, counting, calculating. Her eyes were not wide with wonder. They were sharp with intent. You see, most children learn by imitation. Emma learned by prediction. She saw a man adjust his hat at the same corner every Tuesday and wondered why. She noticed a wife hum louder on the weeks her husband was late. She didn't just observe the world, she measured it. Then came the second warning. While peeling potatoes with her mother, Emma paused and calmly announced, "Mrs. Weber will be discovered tomorrow, 11 in the morning. There will be violence." Greta froze. "Emma, why would you say such a thing?" "The affair's probability of exposure has passed 94%. Mr. Weber's horse is favoring its left leg. He will arrive home 47 minutes early." The next day, right on time, Mr. Weber found his wife entangled with brewery owner Ernst Kellner. A beating followed. Broken ribs. Blood. But no one asked the obvious question, not how Emma knew, but why she was watching so closely, and what she wanted. Emma began writing. A small leather-bound journal stitched by hand, always clutched close. Its pages, not words or stories, but columns of numbers, dates, symbols, timetables, step counts, behavioral anomalies, emotional variances tracked like barometric pressure. She was mapping people, not like a child playing pretend, like a strategist. Every person in Milwaukee's German Quarter was becoming a variable in her silent algorithm. Her father, Hinrich, finally confronted her. "Emma," he asked quietly, "what are you calculating?" She looked up. Her voice was steady. Equilibrium, pressure points, the places where human patterns collapse. "Why?" "Because something is coming. Something they can't hide." She said, "they," but she never said who. That night, Hinrich opened her journal while she slept. What he saw chilled him deeper than the Wisconsin winter. Names, all familiar, arrows connecting them, dotted lines marked influence nodes, symbols next to priests, brewery owners, councilmen. He didn't understand the code, but he saw the shape. A web, and someone had built it. Emma wasn't inventing madness. She was documenting a system, a hidden structure that governed the town, perhaps far beyond. Not everything in Milwaukee was what it seemed, and Emma had found the design. By April, Emma had mapped nearly every resident within a half-mile radius. She knew who met in secret, who paid in cash, who walked faster after dark. She marked patterns in windows, specific curtains closed at odd hours, lanterns dimmed at precisely the same moments on alternating days. Not just behavior, signaling. It wasn't until she mapped the priests that Hinrich truly began to fear. Father Coller's name appeared often, but always linked to Tuesday evenings, candle orders, and a rotating pattern of visitors. But he wasn't the only one. Emma had identified 5 men, all tied to a building no one had thought twice about, an abandoned malt warehouse near the rail yard. Emma drew its layout from memory. Only, she'd never been inside. "The shadows around this place bend," she said quietly. "Their movements are always aligned. At 2:17 a.m. on Thursdays, the door opens without light." Greta pleaded with her to stop. "These are just coincidences, child. You're scaring people." Emma only nodded. "The numbers scare them," she said, "because numbers don't lie." She claimed something ancient was being preserved in that warehouse. But no one would believe an 11-year-old girl. Until she revealed what they were doing inside. The first revelation came quietly, almost whispered through Emma's charts. A series of deliveries marked on her map. Burlap sacks brought in the dead of night. No brewery records. No receipts. But the same wagon. Same 3 men. Always Thursday. Always 2:17 a.m. When Hinrich pressed her, Emma turned a page in her journal. It showed weights, notations, distances. "That warehouse receives 83 kilograms weekly, but nothing leaves," she said. "What's in the sacks, Emma?" Her eyes didn't flinch. "Bone meal, blood, lime, mixed with barley and resin." Hinrich froze. "These are not brewing ingredients." "No," Emma said. "They're ritual components." It was then she showed him the page that changed everything. A ciphered chart based on Gregorian feast days, aligned with lunar phases, cross-referenced against 5 local obituaries. Each death timed, predicted, required. "You think they're sacrificing people?" Emma's voice was flat. "I don't think. I calculate." The deaths weren't random. They were engineered, ritualized, hidden under the mask of illness or accident. The community wasn't just a cluster of immigrants and brewers. It was a stage, and something behind the curtain was pulling strings. And for the first time, Hinrich understood. His daughter hadn't discovered the darkness. She was tracking it. It wasn't just the dead that lined up with Emma's numbers. It was the silences, the weeks where no accidents occurred, where no secrets leaked, where every household moved in perfect mechanical rhythm. Emma marked these moments as calibration windows, periods where whoever was behind the curtain adjusted the system. She believed the entire German quarter was part of a controlled experiment, a microcosm, a closed loop where behavior, tragedy, loyalty, even betrayal were measured and refined. Not by chance, by design. And at the center of it all was that abandoned malt-ware house, which Emma had finally deduced wasn't abandoned at all. She wrote one sentence in her journal that Hinrich would later obsess over. They meet to reset the variable. But which variable? When he asked, Emma simply said, "You, Papa, Mama, me." That night, Hinrich looked out at the town he thought he knew, and he saw it, truly saw it, for the first time. The patterns, the syncopated routines, the same faces in different windows, the same fights at the same hour. None of it was random. If you're still watching, comment, "The pattern watches" twice. You've seen it too now, and now it sees you. The following Sunday, Emma refused to attend Mass. She stood in her church clothes, hair combed, shoes polished, but her face was stone. "They changed the hymn schedule," she whispered. Greta frowned. "So?" Emma's voice was cold. "The schedule hasn't changed in 17 years. Today's change isn't random. It's a marker." Hinrich knelt. "A marker for what?" She turned to him slowly. "They know I'm watching." That morning, Emma's behavior shifted. She no longer stared out the window. She closed her journal. She listened instead. Doors opening, horses stalling, coal carts turning on dirt streets. Every sound, catalogued, filtered, mapped. Her calculations turned defensive. She began predicting her own future. "I have 12 days left," she said flatly. "Until what?" "Until they remove the anomaly." She meant herself. Hinrich refused to hear it. But Greta wept. Mothers feel these things before the mind accepts them. Emma didn't flinch. "They've done it before," she said. "Children like me. We surface every few decades. We see too much. They call it corrective rebalancing. The system doesn't tolerate observation." Emma had stared too long into the machine, and now the machine was staring back. 3 nights later, the whispers started. Not from Emma, but from the walls, beneath the floorboards, the clink of glass, the creak of shoes stopping just short of the doorstep. Emma didn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, journal open, candle burning low, her pencil moving in fast, nervous strokes. "They're adjusting variables in real time now," she muttered. Hinrich checked the locks twice that night. Greta sat beside Emma, hands trembling, unable to speak. At 3:06 a.m., Emma stood and walked to the door. "They're here." A knock followed. 1, 2, pause. Then 3 fast raps. Not the neighbors, not the constable. A signal. Emma didn't answer. But the next morning, chalk symbols were found on their fence post, faint, foreign, symmetrical. 3 neighbors crossed themselves at the sight. Mrs. Brenner whispered that the same symbols had appeared in Regensburg in 1854, before the disappearance of 14 children. Emma circled the symbols in her journal. "These aren't threats," she said. "They're warnings. Like chess, they're sacrificing pawns before they come for the queen. Greta looked up, heart pounding. And who is the queen? Emma looked her in the eye. I am. And in that moment, her parents realized. Their daughter wasn't running. She was preparing for war. On the morning of April 9th, the air in Milwaukee turned thick. Still, like the breath before a scream, Emma didn't speak. She simply packed her journal, her slate, a folded scrap of cloth with strange symbols drawn in berry ink. Hinrich tried to stop her. You're just a child, Emma. No, she said calmly. I'm the anomaly. And anomalies don't survive past the final test. She walked to the warehouse, alone. The town seemed frozen as she passed. Shutters closing, whispers dying in throats. The same brewery men who used to ruffle her hair now looked away. Emma reached the old malt building at exactly 2:70 p.m. She knocked once. The door opened. No one saw her again. By nightfall, the warehouse stood silent. Empty, but scorched. Faint heat still rising from the foundation stones. Inside, only a smear of chalk and a torn journal page remained. Her last equation. 3 lines. A triangle with a circle at the center. A symbol found later in a Vatican vault, catalogued under Project Leviticus. Emma wasn't insane. She had found something ancient and forbidden, and they erased her. Or so they thought. Because that final equation wasn't a prediction. It was an invitation. Weeks passed. The town tried to forget. No body, no funeral, no justice, just silence. The warehouse was boarded shut. The priest gave sermons on obedience. The neighbors returned to their routines, almost too quickly. But something had shifted. The clocks began to stutter. Letters arrived out of sequence. Couples who once walked together now passed without recognition. Mrs. Brenner claimed she saw Emma's silhouette outside her window at 2:17 a.m., just standing, watching. And then the journal returned. Wrapped in cloth, soaked with lake water, it was found on Father Collar's doorstep. Sealed with wax, marked with the same triangle and circle symbol. He opened it, read one page, and by sundown, the church bell tolled 7 times, not for service, but for death. Father Collar had hanged himself. No note, no sermon, just the journal in his hand. One phrase carved into the church pew. She inverted the sequence. It meant nothing to most, but to the few who understood, who had once pulled the strings, it meant Emma had done the impossible. She hadn't just decoded the system, she had rewired it. From inside the machine, the girl they erased had rewritten the program, and the program was still running. By midsummer, 5 more men were dead. All had ties to the warehouse, all marked with the same strange bruises on their chests, triangular, as if burned from inside. None of their families spoke publicly. The coroner claimed natural causes, but no one believed it. Behind closed doors, whispers spread. She left a back door in the code. Emma's journal was passed like contraband between certain households, entire pages written in equations and symbology that didn't belong to any known discipline. Not quite math, not quite theology. It spoke of input triggers and resonant events, of temporal recursion thresholds, of sacrifices that echo backward. The girl they dismissed as a strange child had done what priests, scientists, and occultists had failed to do for centuries. She proved that reality could be altered, not through spells or prayer, but by identifying the machine that powers reality and hacking it. And her final theorem hinted at something even more terrifying. She wasn't the first. There had been others. In Poland, in rural France, in a village outside Kyoto, all children, all erased. But Emma didn't disappear. She dispersed. And now, she was everywhere the system glitched, And every Thursday at 2:17 a.m., someone hears her knocking. In late August of 1873, the U.S. Census Bureau received a letter postmarked Milwaukee. No return address. Inside, a single parchment covered in Emma's handwriting. But it wasn't a census form. It was a data table. Names, dates, professions, manner of death. Predicted, then verified, down to the minute. One name stood out: Arthur Brecht, census clerk, Washington, D.C. September 3rd, 4:44 p.m. Ruptured heart. He died at that exact time. No wounds, no cause. Only the word observed burned into his ledger with no sign of heat, and so the Bureau buried the page, called it a hoax. But others, they knew. Across Europe, secret order. S began updating their ledgers. The name Emma Richter appeared under threat classifications, not as a person, but as a phenomenon, and in private rooms of elite universities scholars whispered of the Richter variance, a shift in probability patterns noticed in Milwaukee and rippling outward. Coincidences multiplied. Unsolved crimes unraveled in impossible symmetry. People started dreaming of triangles, of rotating symbols, of a girl in a dark dress staring through numbers that stared back. And those who understood the system realized something chilling. Emma hadn't broken it. She had become it. In 1901, a forgotten sub-basement was unearthed beneath the Milwaukee Central Library during renovations. Inside, rusted data recorders, 19th-century phonographs, and reels of punched paper inscribed with symbols never seen in any known language. The paper had a signature at the bottom. Among the artifacts, they found a mirror, 8 feet tall, framed in scorched oak, but it didn't reflect. Not normally. It played moments, deaths before they happened. Betrayals never spoken aloud. In it, one could see the face of someone they hadn't met yet, but would. Emma had built it. Not as a window, as a compiler. A machine that fed on inputs of human behavior and rendered outcomes. Not magic, not mysticism, mechanized fate. And at its center, recorded in a child's voice on a cylinder phonograph, was a final message. They made me a mirror, so I became the reflection. The voice was calm, unaged, as if time hadn't moved. Since then, sightings of Emma have increased, always in towns where strange patterns emerge, always where fate begins to stutter, and always at 2:17 a.m. She is not a ghost, she is not a girl. She is the loop, and the loop is learning. If you've made it this far, something's already changed. Your attention, your heartbeat, even the way your screen flickered once, you noticed, didn't you? That's not coincidence. That's contact. Emma's journal said it best. Awareness is the infection vector. She doesn't need to be summoned. She waits for someone to understand. And now you do. You've seen the numbers hiding in plain sight, the way tragedy clumps around dates, the repetition of names in the news, the exact moment your dream spoke to you. She's not in the mirror. She's in the pattern behind the mirror. The one we all feed, with every choice, every regret, every silent wish we think no one hears. Emma is no longer a child. She is the ecosystem, the living subroutine. And with every person who learns her name, the machine grows more complex, more awake. So the final question is not what happened to her. The final question is, what will she make of you? Because if you're watching this right now, it means she's already watching back. And when your life shifts, subtly, impossibly, remember this. She warned us. She inverted the sequence. And now the system dreams in her voice.